FS1 is shaking it up once again. I think this was our test episode almost a year ago, Ben, was the last shakeup. We didn't even make it a year of hosting this podcast together, and we get to bring an FS1 deep dive to life as 3 shows have been canceled. We know at least one prominent talent in Joy Taylor is officially out as her contract has not been renewed, and the entire top to bottom at FS1 is once again in question. What did you think when the news broke yesterday?
It's funny you referenced that because I'm pretty sure even after our test episode, we reviewed Breakfast Ball. I think that was like one of our early episodes, maybe last September. So we've been doing this now for just under a year. So the fact that this podcast outlasted 3 FS1 shows is kind of jarring, kind of a occasion that you don't really see too often. So it's interesting. Obviously, I think Joy Taylor here is the headliner because of the year that she's had or half year that she's had here in the headlines. But to see FS1 cancel 3 shows that were just greenlit last August, is pretty jarring. And so I think, this is a cable channel that since its inception in 2013 has certainly undergone its fair share of strategy shifts, but this seems like the most significant one yet, because this isn't just like one show or one talent or getting rid of Skip Bayless or anything like that. This is they have a chance here to just overhaul their entire day programming schedule, overhaul their entire strategy. And I know we'll get into it, but there's a number of ways they could take this, and it's going to be really fascinating to see what this looks like, especially because this is, I believe, the first time they will have done this without Charlie Dixon, the executive who was let go earlier this year after being sued in 2 separate lawsuits for sexual misconduct. So whoever's running the show now there in terms of filling that void, this is a real chance to put their fingerprints over the product.
As far as I know, his replacement has not been reported. If it's been promoted from within, maybe it'll become clear soon, or they're on the lookout for a big hire. I think that it's just always hard to talk about FS1 without just laying out the peculiarities around its existence, which you were kind of hitting at. One of the big news break stories we've done in Awful Announcing's history was relatively early in the network when Jamie Horowitz kind of was trying to steer it, and our publisher Ben Koo wrote a big thing about how there was not a lot of vision. And I don't know if you could really, as unsourced as this part that I'm about to say is, I don't think it's a stretch, which is that it's not much different from the outside looking in as far as what the overall strategy is, what the overall point of view is, what the overall goals are. This is a network that still is very, very reticent from the top of Fox Sports to actually feel like a sister to the game broadcast that we see. It feels like First Things First, which is the one show other than The Herd that's surviving this decimation or whatever, Ben, is they just got promoted to the, hey, we trust you to actually be known as being part of the same company. They were at the IndyCar race. They've been at the World Series. They're doing the thing like Cowherd has finally. Maybe there's a hope that they could eventually nail it where there's a better symbiosis there, but it doesn't feel good when, we're just talking about these shows not even lasting a year. So as far as what comes next, I guess we can circle back to that, but that's kind of where I always look at this from. And then I think the lawsuit has to be the other thing that you just hit, which is it's hard to make heads or tails of how much this is affected by that lawsuit, which included a lot of allegations, named multiple current and former hosts, including Skip Bayless most prominently. Obviously, Joy Taylor was a defendant and was negotiating a settlement with the with the accuser, who is a former hairstylist. It's not a one-to-one as far as the reporting we've seen that, hey, this was a direct result. I just don't even know if Speak was that successful of a show for them. So it might have been an easier decision ultimately than even having to get into the legal weeds with that show, which was Joy Taylor and Keyshawn Johnson and Paul Pierce, and often Michael Irvin or Rick Bucher kind of in that fourth chair. Like, I don't think that was getting a lot of people onto their television sets or whatever, because it's going up against PTI and you know, whatever. And it's when people are getting home for the day, and it's not it wasn't breaking through at all. So I guess that's kind of where I come down, is I'm like, I don't know how much of this is just more FS1 BS or an opportunity for somebody to replace Dixon and actually imprint themselves and maybe finally make sense of this network, or if it is just the final kind of closing of the book on the lawsuit that started all the way in January. I guess I don't have an answer, but it feels like that's kind of the three doors that this could lead to.
Yeah, and I think like we'll know even before we see whatever they replace the programming like let's just say for the sake of argument they announced 3 new shows. We'll know like based on what those shows are before we even see an episode, like where they're going from here. Like, because the whole, I had a funny conversation with Drew Lerner at Awful Announcing in our Slack channel. And I said something to the effect of like, maybe they'll stop trying to be ESPN now. And he said, well, they stopped trying to be ESPN a long time ago. And my rebuttal was, well, their daytime programming never got the memo, because these shows, all 3 of these shows that they canceled are just like First Take ripoffs. Like they're just like, all right, let's argue about sports for a couple of hours. And I know that's like the model. And I know that's a little bit what First Things First does, but I think that show has at least built a unique chemistry. But all of these are kind of born out of the First Take, undisputed type of model. And so I think if we see them replace this with just different talent and it's the same style of show, then I think we can pretty safely say, all right, same old FS1. I think the 2 opportunities here they have are, I think one that has potential is like, do you just let Colin Cowherd kind of put his fingerprints all over the channel now? You already kind of have that. Nick Wright has allegiances to Colin Cowherd, especially with their connection through the volume. You also have Danny Parkins now, who's out there without a gig. It sounds like they want to keep him, and he's also very much a part of that Colin Cowherd, I guess, like family. Like
Colin Cowherd named him the best local radio host in America and basically, you know, shepherded him in. So it would be hard to imagine that he would get the axe just because that show didn't work.
Right. And that's, I mean, you watch that show, he was never really a fit for that show. They were kind of doing 3 different shows depending on who was hosting that day. And then the third opportunity, I think, would be to do some sort of licensing agreement, some sort of content sharing agreement, whether that's with FanDuel, DraftKings, or I've seen Barstool floated out there as well.
Yeah, well, let's hit that really quick since you're on the topic. So the Funhouse Twitter account, which loves to like make fun of Colin Cowherd and whatnot, and he's basically a Mike Francesa and Colin Cowherd like joke account at this point. And they tweeted that Fox suits are looking at Barstool personalities to replace at least one of the FS1 shows that got canceled today. He said that the same source told him that Skip was out at Fox a week before it was announced. Whatever. I love that, like, you and I have both covered local sports, and there's always like these random pseudo insiders that you have to like try to determine how seriously to take the news that they break, quote unquote. I love that it's come into sports media and we have to just kind of like, I guess we mentioned this, but I don't know how real it is. And then Jason Whitlock, speaking of, I guess this is real, but I don't know how seriously to take it, him as a person, he said, get ready for all the smoke. Heard this a month ago. Let's see if they stick to the plan. And then he deleted that tweet. So those are 2 possibilities that would be the licensing model that you're kind of talking about. The like, hey, we'll do a Pat McAfee deal over here too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you look at it, that's what they need. Like, that's like, because these ESPN and Fox Sports 1 exist to air games, but you can't air games 24/7. You need something to fill out that programming and to promote the games. And so you just look and like I said, like, yeah, you can go run a knockoff First Take again. You can run a knockoff Undisputed, and we're going to be having the same episode a year from now or 2 years from now. Like, they need to fill this out with content that's different. And at least the idea of like having Barstool talent is different and could draw in a loyal audience. They came to mind for me. The Ringer came to mind for me. Just like the FanDuel network, like the Kay Adams show, and they just seem to at least have a very built out portfolio of shows that seem to fit that model of what you would be looking for. That to me is what makes the most sense, is if they could find some sort of content sharing agreement, some sort of licensing agreement to help fill this out with shows that already have a built-in audience rather than starting from scratch. That to me would be the move for them. And you've already seen ESPN head in that direction as well. So it's certainly not something that FS1 would be above.
No, and it's cheaper, and that's the other part. You mentioned Drew. I feel like I have to be his stand-in for this conversation by mentioning that, the future of Fox, of News Corp is, not immediately uncertain. It's not like, CBS and Paramount, where there's an active merger/acquisition that's, on the final, 2-yard line or whatever, but they sold off an Australian division of their company, Foxtel, earlier this year in a pretty sizable, I think like $600 million deal. There's always the kind of like literally what Succession was based off of, kind of what comes next for that company, which brother's going to get the control stuff that's lingering here. They're supposed to launch their own standalone streaming service, finally, later this year alongside ESPN. I don't exactly feel like, if I'm making decisions here, I can go, one, it's not Disney and ESPN, so the budgets are different, but it's also, you're not going to go sign, like, people have been throwing out all the recently fired Max Kellermans and everything else. I don't see them paying a bunch of money. Like, they had something go wrong with Michelle Beadle to be part of Breakfast Ball last year. Michelle Beadle's not exactly, making record sums on whatever contract she was going to sign, and I don't know if that was money or not, but I just have a hard time imagining that it's going to be anything of that ilk. I think it's far more likely, and honestly might even have a better chance of succeeding if you build out a more, developed live edition of some kind of show that is already popular, and just get a head start on where this all is probably going. So I like that, but at the same time, I guess the last kind of thing to tie up as we look ahead here is the talent that was already in-house, Ben, which is not, I don't imagine they're all gone. The initial report from Andrew Marchand, who I should have credited for breaking this whole story, said that Keyshawn Johnson is likely to remain in place alongside Danny Parkins, who you already hit. That doesn't include Paul Pierce, Emmanuel Acho, LaShawn McCoy. I'm sure there's, people we could throw out there. I think that's probably like the headliners. Do you think it's just Keyshawn and Parkins that stay? Like, is anyone worth keeping around? Like, is there anyone you want to see them at least keep trying? What do you see as far as the talent that could be part of maybe there's still one show that gets built out with existing talent and the others are like what do you see them doing here?
I could see a specifically NFL focused show, like some sort of rival, I guess, to NFL Live, and you have the natural tie-in with them having a partnership as a media rights partner with the NFL. So I think from just that standpoint, you just look at who they employ, who are, essentially former NFL players: Mark Schlereth, Keyshawn Johnson, LaShawn McCoy. They have a Chase Daniel. Chase Daniel is seen as a rising star in sports media. I don't know about Emmanuel Acho. He's definitely somebody who's polarizing, but I think that if you were to build an NFL focused show, you certainly have enough talent there where you could do that. And it would give at least your daytime programming a little bit more structure, as opposed to, again, just doing 4 or 5 different versions of the exact same show. So I think that would make a lot of sense. I don't know. Paul Pierce Paul Pierce is fine. I just don't really see a future where they have an NBA dedicated show, or again, unless they're just going to run it back and run the same sorts of shows that they've been running. I just don't see where he would fit in. So I definitely think Danny Perkins makes sense considering his ties to the existing talent and his reputation in the industry. And, Keyshawn makes sense as well. But beyond that, it's definitely, I think you're probably going to see more talent leave than more talent stay.
It is not a lot of time either to get this, football season as always kind of the unofficial, hey, have your shit together if you're a sports network. And I think too, like it's just funny in a way, like these Emmanuel Acho types where they kind of came up at the tail end of when like television was the end all be all for this kind of content. And they fancied themselves like the heir apparent to a Stephen A. Smith. And then that all just kind of shrunk right as they were coming up. So it's like Emmanuel Acho only fits on a show like that. You know what I mean? Like there's not exactly a place for him, even though he clearly has a name recognition. He does cut through, even if it's mostly infuriating people. He does do the thing, and but where does that work if not on one of the only 2 TV networks where there are shows like that? It's kind of a weird place to be. So, yeah, I think a football show, I thought you were going to say, because I think technically NFL Live goes up against First Things First right now, and that's not moving. So it might be more of a get-up competitor in the end, head-to-head with that show has basically just become an NFL show.
Doesn't the Barstool thing, though, make a lot of sense out of the move to Chicago for Colin Cowherd? Like the fact that FS1 now has headquarters effectively in Chicago. Barstool has offices in Chicago, which seems to be their flagship office. That's where Big Cat is, and they have their college football and college basketball coverage there. Like that.
So do you think they would just license a Barstool show and just play an episode, or do you think that they would develop a program alongside Barstool?
So reading between the lines of
Van Talk 2.0, basically.
Yeah, reading between the lines of the back after this post that we referenced, it sounds like it would be a new show where they do utilize Barstool talent. I don't know, like that. It would make more sense for me to see them license it, but part of my take isn't like 5 days a week, and I don't know like how easily they could add that to their plate at Barstool. It seems like that would put the onus on Barstool to develop a new show. But like, yeah, I like that. To me, it's like, oh, it makes sense that they have an office in Chicago now. I really didn't understand, other than the Big Ten Network, like why FS1 would be moving its premier talent to Chicago until now.
Well, I think Colin moved himself to Chicago.
Yeah.
They had to
Fair enough.
Get on board or lose him. But yeah, it could definitely be. I get the impression that Big Ten studio is really tiny. And like even Colin plus a co-host would be a tough fit just physically for the space. Obviously, I haven't been there, but that's just what I've kind of seen and heard. Yeah, it would be fascinating to see Barstool make a run at it. I would throw Outkick out there if not for the fact that they just don't have a lot of people on staff who are really hosts. And I don't think Dan Dakich is exactly, he's not versatile enough, I think, to build an entire show around. Like what his show is college basketball and then some stuff that he wants to rant about every day. That's not.
Yeah.
And Clay Travis already came and went on this network for a gambling show. And he's interviewing the freaking president and the head of the Pentagon every other day at this point. I don't think he needs to be talking about, Kyler Murray or whatever anymore. So I think that there are options. All the Smoke would definitely be a basketball show, but they don't have NBA rights. And they barely even have like the best college basketball anymore. So I don't know what that would really accomplish either.
So I think I misread that tweet from Whitlock because I took that as Joy Taylor was going to wind up on All the Smoke.
Okay.
So I don't know
because he deleted it. So
right. Yeah. I don't,
knows?
That would have been kind of a natural fit for Joy.
I guess I just assumed because Paul Pierce does some, Oh no, he does stuff with KG's outfit, not theirs. So I don't know if there's a connection actually anymore between those two entities. I think not since Showtime went down. So maybe Jason Whitlock will eventually clarify. I think probably not.
Yeah.
More to come. They have 6 weeks to develop whatever this is going to look like if they want to be ready for the busiest time of the sports calendar.